everyone. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are today. I believe we have people from about 50 countries, maybe more, joining us. But my name is Madeline Perez. I am a program manager here at Google Cloud, and I'm very excited to be here with you as the host of today's session. Today, we'll be talking about the agentic revolution, why now is the time to build intelligent agents. Praful will explore the agentic shift, uncovering why agents are revolutionizing industries, what their core capabilities are, and why this is the golden era for startups to begin building them. But before we jump into today's session, I just have a bit of spiel to go through. So we'll get started with everything about the curriculum for this year's school. If you haven't heard, we already had the week 0 session available on demand. You can check it out on our platform just to see kind of what we've already covered. We're currently in week 1 of the sessions, and you'll learn more about why now is the time to build intelligent agents. In week 2, you'll learn more about the agent engine and its potential. And in week 3, we'll deep dive on building and deploying your first agent, and we'll talk about LLM applications with Datadog. For those who are here with us for the first time, this is a bit of a quick overview about Startup School at Google Cloud. Each week, we have live sessions like this one on Tuesdays and Thursdays, which are later available to watch on demand if you want to go back to some of the topics that have been covered. Most of our sessions also have a non-mandatory, but very recommended labs and notebook sessions, so you can put the knowledge that you gained into practice. In the Cloud Skills Boost platform, you can also obtain skill-specific badges. In terms of the Cloud Skills Boost piece of all of this, you'll be able to access these labs free of charge. You'll just need to fuel your account with credits in our platform. All the information you see from this slide was provided to you in a reminder email or a confirmation email that you all received. If you haven't seen it already, please double check your spam folder. We hear about it all the time that this kind of gets lost there. You'll just see an email from googlecloud@google.com. But again, in case you have any problems, as you can see on the bottom of this slide, you can reach out to Startup School External at google.com, and we can help get you all set up, make sure that you have no issues. Hopefully, one last thing here is just to go over a little bit of housekeeping and explain again how the session will go. Before we jump in, just again, quick things. First off, on the right-hand side of the screen, there's a chat function and a Q&A panel at the bottom. We have Google AI experts on hand to answer any questions that come up throughout class. Please ask your Agentic AI specific questions in the Q&A panel below and interact with other founders and developers in the chat. And then one more request, please don't share your LinkedIn profiles in the chat space. We'll go into where you can share that instead after. We're going to save the last 10 minutes of class for Q&A with our instructor, and we'll select the most common questions and those related specifically to the content they cover. Please upvote questions in the Q&A panel and use the chat space to converse with other participants. We're recording each class, and you'll be able to watch them again on demand at a later stage, and you can access these recordings via the main program page. We won't be sharing slides, unfortunately, but we will share links to the labs covered in class, both during the class in the chat Q&A and also in our weekly recap emails. You can also find the list of the resources tab on our website. And last but not least, this is a hands-on training series, and most classes will cover a lab. All of these, again, are available on the Cloud Skills Boost platform on our Google Cloud GitHub repo. We'll share links with you to access both of these. We recommend using this time during class to watch our instructors going through the lab and completing it after the session. The credits we provide will last you another few months, so you have plenty of time to get these done. That is all from me. Now it's a massive pleasure for me to welcome to the virtual stage our amazing speaker Praful. Welcome to the Startup School stage. I will see you all later for the Q&A. The floor is yours. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Madeline. Hey, everyone. Nice to meet all of you, if only virtually. My name is Praful. I'm a custom engineer here at Google Cloud. I've been around for the last 5-6 years at this point, so I've been lucky to get the front seat to see how quickly AI has evolved to a point where people are now building agents very, very quickly, right? Now, in terms of what we will cover today, I think I would want to focus today's session on the why, right? Everyone is building agents. Everyone's talking about it. Everyone's discussing it. There's so much that's going on when it comes to agents right now, right? But This session is more about us taking a step back and reflecting why exactly should you even be building agents in the first place, right? Now, I know I'm talking to folks who are, founders, aspiring founders, folks who are, fairly, further along in their journey when it comes to building their organizations. But I believe that this session will really help you understand why agents and why now. So, with that, not surprisingly, let's talk about agents. So, what exactly are AI agents? Now, this is a term that's used so loosely, so often, in so many forums, and in so many ways that people just assume that everyone knows what they even mean when they talk about when they say AI agents. But let's maybe start with a few simple definitions. So, we had this era of what I like to call as the chatbot era, right? Imagine this entity sitting at the bottom right hand side of your web page, answering a few specific questions for you, and then completely failing when you try to ask it something uh, outside its context, right? Uh, what we call conventional agent today is the evolved variant of what used to be the chatbot, right? So think of the conventional agents as basically agents that have a single purpose. They have linear interactions. They are fairly limited in their ability and in their memory. And a simple example would be, imagine an agent that can just set up a meeting for you, right? So that's what we call as a conventional agent. But a big chunk, in fact, this entire series, not just the session today, but the entire session from today till the end for the next 2.5, 3 weeks, we will be focusing more on what you see on the right hand side, which is the agentic system. How exactly can you build a solution that is, goal oriented, which is multimodal, which can combine agents for you, right? So that's what we will be focusing on, and we will build up to a point where not only will we talk about it, but we will show you how to build it and build, at a high level, how to use multiple pieces to build a production grade solution for that matter. Now, I spoke a lot about agents, but I like this definition about agents, right? Like, this really captures what we want people to know when we talk about agents. So, primarily, agents are, autonomous entities. They do not require any human intervention, right? Like, they're designed by us, but they don't really need a human in the loop sort of element for them to actually work. They are goal oriented, which means that you can have a one single goal for all of these agents, and these agents are basically, think of these as multi-agent systems that are working with each other and are using tools at an agent level as well. Again, if these are terms that you don't necessarily understand, don't worry about it. We will talk and show you some of these things today. In fact, this is a great white paper that we released. I would very strongly recommend that you take some time to really go through it. Now, it's one thing to talk about it. It's another to actually, show you something. So with that in mind, let me switch to a very simple demo of what an agent looks like. So give me a second while I do that. So this is AI Studio. I don't know if you folks are familiar with it, but this can think of this as your playground of sorts, right? When it comes to building AI solutions on Google Cloud today, there are two approaches. One is AI Studio, which you see right now, and one is Vertex, which we will show you a little bit later today, and will be the focus of the next 2.5 weeks. Now, once you come here, you can already see that there are a bunch of things that you can quickly try out, right? You can click on, uh, let's say, one of these models, and you can just get started and play around with them. You can go ahead and set up a few things as well. So there's a lot that you can potentially do right away. What I will focus on right now is something very simple. Build a simple agent for me. As simple as that. And you will get to see this in action right now, where I will build a conversational agent using Gemini that will book a travel reservation for me and can use Google search grounding as well. So let me paste my prompt. Okay, great. So let's go ahead and use this to build a very simple agent right away. So what you will see here now is the model is thinking, figuring out what the conversational flow should be, refining a bunch of things. And as it does that, on the right hand side, you'll start seeing some code appear. So give it a few minutes, actually not a few minutes, maybe a minute, because the last few times I've done this, it took about 50-55 seconds to finish the thinking and actually design all of this for you. So let's wait and see this come up. Okay, so now it's defining the data structure. So as you see the thinking ability, you will start, as a developer, a lot of these will be things that you will be doing on your own when you're building something from scratch, right? Here, Gemini is doing all of the thinking for you. It's thinking through the logic, thinking through the databases, thinking through the API setup, thinking through how to interact with Gemini. It's going through all of that, thinking through, it's effectively behaving as an architect for you for that one simple prompt that you've given to it. And based on that prompt, it's figuring out what makes sense. And using that, it's going ahead and wiring all of this together for you. So while we wait for this, now it's building the UI structure as well. I think we are very, very close to now it being wrapped up with its thinking, which means that in a few seconds' time, you'll start seeing code show up on the right hand side. Okay, streamlining the core, the UI, the logic. I think Gemini is fairly thorough, as thorough as how you would want all your software engineers to be as well, which is a good thing, I suppose. Okay, so while we keep waiting for this, actually, while we wait for this, let's switch back to the presentation and go to the next slide, and I'll come back to this in a second. Okay, so we were here. So the focus of our session today and the rest of the entire Startup School series will be the agentic system, right? How do you go ahead and build a solution? Um, like, how do you focus on building an agentic system? Because to be very, very honest, it's become very, very easy to build conventional agents, right? Like, and you will see this in a minute. In fact, let's go back and see if it's ready. Okay, it's still building it out, so we'll come back to it later, right? But it's become very, very simple and very, very trivial to actually build these agents. So the focus here is, how do you build solutions that are multi-agent in nature, that are able to solve for one big problem statement? So for example, something like, let's say, an executive assistant that can manage your work life for you, right? In fact, now let's go back to the code that we were trying to power up. So you can see here, this is the same prompt. It thought for about a few minutes, and now it's designing all your code right in front of you. Now, a lot of you might be familiar with this whole concept of vibe. You're getting a feel for that right now as you see all of this happening, where with just a simple prompt, what's happened is that Gemini has figured out all the structures that need to be put together. And based on those structures, it's going ahead and just putting the entire code together for you. And this is all live, by the way, right? I actually put in the prompt, and it chose today to take 3 minutes. Usually takes only about a minute or so. But as you can see, it's actually writing all of the code as we speak. So let's wait for it to finish this up. And there we go. We now have a very simple app which you can talk to, which basically behaves like an assistant for you, that you can, that, let's say, book a trip for to Vietnam. So the Vietnam was one of those places that I've not been able to visit this year. So let's maybe try that. Okay. So what you will see is it's now doing this in a conversational manner, where you can give it start date and end date. So let's say 1st of July to 10th of July. Anyway, so I'm assuming you folks get the gist. that this is how you can just keep talking to it and keep designing an entire itinerary for yourself, right? Keep in mind this was done in a matter of minutes, right? There was no existing code, there was no existing UI. Just through a simple prompt, you were able to build a very simple conventional agent, which goes back to the point that I was trying to make earlier, that it's become so simple to build agents that now you want to look at how to build these systems as a way to get started. Right. So let me go back to my presentation again. And that's where we are. We were talking about agentic systems, which leads us to the question that why agents and why now, right? Now, all of you folks are founders. All of you are building businesses. All of you know exactly the value of building these companies. You will know that most modern businesses work in a specific manner, and they at a very high level. And again, I know maybe making a massive approximation when I say this. They work in a matter of two layers. One is what we call as a SaaS layer. This is the solution layer. This is the layer where all the solutions that, let's say, you might be using in your organization, this is where all of those sit. Let's say Salesforce for tracking, Workday from an HR standpoint, Canva, Figma. There's so many tools that you might be using day in and day out. So that's the SaaS layer. But there's also the second layer, which is, in my opinion, the most important layer, which is the human layer. So this is the layer of the smart, talented folks in your organization that are hired to, operate all of that software and derive real business value from all of them. Now, when I put this together, I put layers in the same size, but the reality is quite different. The dollar value of the work that goes into building the human layer is massive, right? In fact, it may well be called as the most inefficient layer out of the two, right? Because of the sheer amount of work that goes into, let's say, hiring people, in training them, in getting them to understand what sort of priorities they need to meet and achieve within an organization, how to train them, how to get them to execute a certain number of tasks, right? So from that sort of point, it's important to then see that how can, let's say, AI help you in that scenario. And that's where agents come in, because agents are autonomous, like I said a little bit earlier. You could have a scenario where you could have vertical agents sitting in the human layer that can allow humans to augment everything that they're doing day in and day out. And for all of you who are building startups today, this is where the money sits. This is where the opportunity sits for all of you. And this is exactly why we very strongly recommend that folks look at building agents for them. And just to maybe close the loop on that point, right? This is the entire value chain when it comes to building an agent, right? You will see that most of the pieces of this entire value chain have been covered in some shape or form by multiple companies, be it, let's say, Google and Microsoft, right, who cover things like fine tuning, training, creation of agents, combining agents, inferring things from agents, right? So all of that is covered. So the horizontal stack, for want of a better word, is covered, right? So where does the opportunity sit? That's where the vertical agents really comes up, and that's the point that I was trying to make on the previous slide, that building a solution specific to that human layer, specific to a vertical, is where the opportunity really sits for all of you. Which then brings me to the question of why now, right? Why exactly do you need to think about building agents right now? Well, that's because AI in itself has evolved quite a bit, right? And like I said at the beginning of this session, right? I've been at Google for almost 6 years now. And the first 2 years of my time here at Google, any AI discussion would be centered on things like, can I do a very simple classification model on my data? Let's say that data is sitting in BigQuery, which is our serverless data warehouse solution, right? Can I do very simple regression models, right? So a lot of those were the points that were being made. But now AI has changed, and it all changed in the last 2 3 years, where we started with this whole focus on LLMs, right? And I'm sure most of you know what LLMs can do. right? I don't need to maybe talk too much about it, but at a very high level, LLMs give you the ability to generate content, to retrieve data from existing sources as well, right? So you have this powerful ability through LLMs. The next thing that appeared was what we call as a RAG solution, or retrieval augmented generation, right? How could you maybe have a retriever um, attached to an LLM and use that as a way to retrieve data? Because to be very honest, LLMs are fixed in from the point of view of the data that they're trained on. You can't really ask them information that they're not trained on. They can generate content from the data that they're trained on, but they're not able to retrieve data that they're not trained on. So that's where RAG can really help you. The next evolution was tooling. Now, this is another way by which we've been able to augment what all would be possible through your RAG solution, right? So you can have these tools that you could use to access, let's say, imagine a scenario where, as a software engineer, you want to look up a very simple Jira case where you may have logged a case that you need to work on, right? So with this ability now, through an LLM, you can interact with Jira, right? And now we are in this whole world of multi-agents where you don't have just one agent and all of this, talking to each other. You have multiple agents potentially talking to each other, trying to keep each other in the loop. So that's the evolution that we have seen in the AI agents ecosystem, especially in the last 1 year. So, but more than that, there's another important event that's happened, another important evolution that's happened, and that's the confluence of three very specific advancements that have happened. One is the models. The models have so at this point, as someone who follows AI quite a bit, I see a new model being announced just about every other week, right? Even here at Google, we do this where we have announced so many models, we have evolved so much just in the last 6 months, and we will continue to evolve. But that's not just us, that's going to be all the other players in the space, right? But the great thing that you will notice as a pattern is that with every successive iteration of a model, it's become cheaper and cheaper to use the models itself, right? That results in lower cost for you to build applications. That results in a cheaper inference setup. More than that, models have become multimodal, which means that you can now give inputs to a model in different formats, be it text, video, image, right? So there are multiple formats in which you can give the data to a model. And more importantly, we now have models that are giving you a response in different formats as well, which we will see a little bit later in the session, where I will talk to a model and get a live response from it as well, right? The second thing is the tooling. Now, with the focus on building production grade applications, one of the biggest area that we have seen a lot of growth is the tooling. So most of you would have heard of frameworks like LangChain, LangGraph, right? Crew AI. So these are all frameworks that allow you to combine a model with a tool and drive real business value. And then the third bit is the platform, the ability to build, test, and deploy all of these agents. What we have seen over the last, let's say, 18 months is that these three specific elements have evolved so much that you are now at a point where, quite frankly, this is the best time to build agents. It's as simple as that. And that's what we are here to help you, right? Over the next 3 weeks, we will focus on how you can use the Google platform, specifically elements like Vertex AI, Agent Engine. Again, if these are terms you have not heard of, don't worry about it. We will spend quite a bit of time going over all of them over the next 2.5 weeks. So that's just going back to this again. This confluence makes it a very unique time to actually go ahead and build agents for yourself. Now, again, I don't expect all of you to follow along this slide, which is fine. But the hope will be that by the end of the Startup School series, you will be able to understand every single thing that we have on the slide, because every single thing on the slide will be talked about in the future sessions. But this, in some ways, is a high-level architecture of what agents can look like, where you have a serving layer, which could be our own Vertex solution, or it could be, let's say, the fast API. It could be you can use agent orchestration, so that could be line chain, line graph. I will spend some time talking about ADK, or the Agent Development Kit today, which is Google's orchestration layer. Then you have the evaluation, the LLMs itself, the data stores. How do you log and monitor all the activity, right? So this is how architecture of a production grade agent solution should look like. And we will cover all of this in more detail over the next few sessions. Which then brings me to why Google Cloud, right? So we talked about why should you look at building agents, and just to maybe take it all the way back to the beginning, what exactly are agents, right? Why exactly should you look at using agents? Now, why should you look at using Google Cloud for building agents? And that's primarily because when it comes to these three specific innovations, right? Google may well be the only platform out there that has a solution for all of them, right? So, for example, starting with for the model, we have the Gemini family of models. This is the family of models that you can use as a way of just getting started. And there's so many models that we have already released, and I'll show you one of them in action as well. Then you have the ADK, which is the Agent Development Kit. That's the framework that you can use to build your own agents. So just like how you have LangChain, LangGraph, Crow AI, you also have ADK as a great way of building out agents on the Google platform. And then you have Vertex. Vertex is our platform for building and deploying agents. Now, just taking a step back, right? They are solutions for tools, they are solutions for models, they are solutions for a platform, right? But with Google, you're getting a single solution, a single platform for all three at the same time. With that in mind, let's maybe start by talking about Gemini. So, Gemini, as I was saying a little bit earlier, is our family of foundation models. And Gemini is truly multimodal. What I mean by that is that not only is the input to Gemini uh, multimodal, but the output could be multimodal as well, depending on the model that you end up choosing from the platform. Now, it comes in many flavors. As you start working with the platform, you will hear terms like the Pro platform, or the Gemini Pro family of models, or the Gemini Flash family of models, right? So, uh, as the term suggests, Pro uh, is the leader in some ways, right, of the family of models that we have. It's the best performing model, ideal for reasoning, ideal for coding, any sort of software agents, right? So it's ideal for all of those sort of workflows. Flash is again equally good in a lot of use cases, but more than that, it's an extremely cheap model as well. So it's good, it's fast, and it's cheap, which is what I think most startups want as they're building out solutions, right? So you have the Flash model as well. Now, it's one thing to talk about them; it's another to actually hear them and engage with them, right? So I'll just switch to another quick demo. So give me a second while I do that. Okay, so we are now back again to AI Studio. With AI Studio, what we will do now is we will click on Stream. So what I'll be showing here to you is how you can talk to Gemini and get a response back from Gemini through voice. So like I was saying a little bit earlier, the output could be text, it could be audio. You can give an video input, an audio input, an image input, right? So it's truly multimodal, quite frankly. Here, exactly what we will do is I will also enable a few things, specifically grounding with Google search. So grounding is the ability for the model to retrieve data that was not in its training data set. Okay, so in this case, I'll be talking to Gemini and I'll ask it a very simple question. For those of you who follow sports and follow tennis quite a bit, you may have watched the French Open recently. So I'm just going to ask Gemini who exactly won the French Open. Okay, so with that in mind, and I think all settings already enabled, let's go ahead and talk to the model. Hello.
Hello. How can I? Hello?
Hi,
Hi there. How can I help you today?
can you tell me who exactly won the French Open last week?
Carlos Alcaraz won the French Open last week. He had a remarkable comeback, winning the final against Jannik Sinner after losing the first two sets.
Okay, so what you saw here was a very simple demo of Gemini where I asked it a question basically asking who won the French Open last week. And it came back to me with a very simple response that Carlos Alcaraz won it over a 5 set game. What happened here was you had the LLM that was doing the conversation with me, and the LLM retrieved data from Google search and came back to me with the right response, right? So Gemini allows you to ground against Google search, and you just got to see that in action. Okay, with that, let's go back to the previous slides. So that was Gemini in a nutshell, right? Like how simple and easy it is to test out Gemini. I would very strongly recommend all of you to try out AI Studio today, right? Because it really helps you get up and running very, very quickly. Okay. So what you saw when I was talking to the model was a Gemini 2.5 family of models. So with Gemini 2.5, we have now reached this unique phase where what we are building now is called as the hybrid models, right? So till now, you had Gemini that was 1.5, Gemini 2.0. So these models did a very good job of executing against multiple sort of tasks. With 2.5, you now have the ability to get enhanced performance, but also thinking or reasoning, right? So you can take advantage of all of that to get better responses as well. And more than that, a lot of the use cases that I see when I talk to startups today is, can I use Gemini as someone that can pair program with me, right? Can I work with Gemini to come up with a few ideas for this use case that I have in mind, right? So Gemini is extremely powerful in all of those scenarios, right? It really helps you with all of those use cases. In fact, uh, today when you go and look at the LM Arena, uh, Gemini 2.5 Pro tops the leaderboard, right? So, and by quite a bit of a margin, right? And we've just announced so many new versions of it over the last 1 month that we have managed to stay as the leaders on the leaderboard. But more than that, I would very strongly recommend that one, look at using AI Studio, right? You can just go and type in ai.dev in your search bar and get started right away and play around with Gemini 2.5, right? Just get a feel for what the model can do for you, get a feel for the multiple use cases that are possible, right? So that is one thing that I would very strongly recommend that all of you do. Okay, now what exactly did you see me doing on that in that demo? So this gives you a sense of it, right? There was this multimodal input that went to the model, right? As you can see on this slide, uh, it can be text, image, video, and audio. I sent an audio input to the model. Now the model used its ability to um, connect to Google search to give me a response. But that's not the only thing that Gemini can do for you, right? You have other features as well. So things like multimodal understanding and generation, right? So it understood the audio input, understood the crux of the question, and then generated a response in an audio format for me. Gemini has a massive context. This is where we are very unique compared to everyone else in the market, where we have a 1 million size context window that you can take advantage of. But more than that, Gemini also allows you to connect with tools in a native manner. And if you're familiar with MCP, you can use MCP with Gemini as well. So that's another thing to potentially try out. Which then brings us to ADK, Agent Development Kit. Now, what exactly is ADK? ADK is our flexible and modular framework for developing and deploying agents. Now, ADK is not a solution where it has to only deploy Gemini products or Gemini models. You can use ADK for all the popular LLMs out there, right? So let's say for Claude, if you want to use ADK to build an agent that's powered by Claude, you can do that, right? And with ADK, the advantage that you get is the tight integration with the Google ecosystem, which I'll talk about in a bit, right? Which is where we talk about Vertex AI as the platform of choice for you. Now, where does ADK sit, right? Basically, it sits somewhere in the middle in terms of the complexity and the ease of use, in terms of what all is possible. In fact, I would say it sits somewhere right in the middle, right? Because with LangChain and LangGraph, you get a little bit more flexibility, and then you have other solutions like I don't know if you folks have built out agents from scratch, or let's say a simple bot from scratch. If you have, you will remember how painful it can sometimes get to behave like a conversational linguist who has to design an entire flow of, let's say, conversation going from point A to point B, understand what potential questions could be asked, understand potential responses, right? So there's quite a bit of pain that's involved in doing all of that when you're trying to build from scratch, right? Now with ADK, what you're getting is you're getting the flexibility of residing somewhere in the middle where you can very quickly prototype and build an agent. You can very quickly e- combine the model, combine the tools, wrap it up all together, and expose it as an agent. In fact, what I'll do now is I'll actually go ahead and show you some code and execute that code and show you how easy it is to actually build an agent with ADK. Give me a second while I do that again. But before I do that, I just want to show you a few quick things. This is the landing page for ADK. This is again very it's super new, and by super new I mean it's just a few months old. So I would very strongly recommend that in addition to the two things that I've said, which is use AI Studio and Gemini, look at ADK as well. We will share these links as well with you, so do take a look at this. The second thing is we have a lot of very simple samples that you can take advantage of. So this is a very well designed code repository that you can take a look at, which has a lot of samples of ADK. It will walk you through how you can build ADK agents for simple use cases like, let's say, customer service, academic research, a simple RAG solution, right? So for all those sorts of agents, we've already built examples that you can go ahead and deploy and play around with. Now, what exactly will I show you? Well, something very simple. I'll go ahead and share my editor. So this is the Google Cloud platform itself, right? And you will see the editor here. Let me just pull this down. This is what we call as the console. Most of you folks who are using Google Cloud Platform today will be very familiar with this, right? Where you can use this as a way to look up resources, look up what you've already built, or maybe try to build something. So this would be your starting page for all of it. What I am now pulling up here is the editor. So this is an editor that sits within the GCP console itself. Okay. Now, what exactly have I done here? So I've gone ahead and created a very simple multi-tool agent, which you can see on the left-hand side. I'll then pull up the code for agent.py. So this is the very simple agent that I have built. And all that it does is it gets the weather details for me and the current time of a given city. And with ADK, what we're doing is we are providing these two specific functions, wrapping them up into tools, combining that with a model and creating an agent for you. So anyone who is familiar with Python code will notice that there's nothing new, at least at this point. This is where the actual ADK bit really comes in. So this is all you would be doing when you're trying to wire up two tools to build an agent, right? You will just go ahead and just name the agent, identify which model you want to use as part of the agent, give a description for the agent, give it a specific instruction of what exactly should the agent be able to do for you, and then combine the two function calls as tools for your agent. So very simple. You just use those two existing Python functions, and it's combined them all into a simple agent for you. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll actually go ahead and execute this and show you how you can interact with this. Okay. So I already have, just for the sake of the demo, I've already installed ADK and I have all this running in a virtual environment. So I'll just go ahead and type ADK web and I'll wait for the server to get up and running. Okay, now the server is up. I'll go ahead and just preview this. So by the way, just to let all of you know, right, this sort of ability to work with the agents through the web is actually possible with ADK, right? I have not built some, let's say, a front end of sorts, right? This is just ADK's own way of getting you to interact with its own agents. So I'll just go ahead and type very simple hello. Okay, I think there is an issue with my agent. So that's the danger with live demos. There's always one demo that seems to break at the wrong time. But just going back to this, what will actually happen here is that it will interact with the agent and retrieve in details for, let's say, the weather or the time for a given city. In fact, sometime later in the session, I'll get this demo up and running and I'll show this to you folks again. Okay, with that, I'll just come back to the session again and share the presentation deck. Okay, yeah, so now just going back to the architecture that we were talking about at the beginning, you have ADK sitting as part of the orchestration layer. And again, we will really go very deep into ADK in week 3, if I remember this correctly, where we will walk you through a level 300 session where we will take an idea and build an agent using ADK. But at a very high level, just for all of you to understand what exactly it is that you can get with agents, you get all of the pieces that I was showing you, right? Which is the instruction. So in the case of the demo that I was trying to show, the instruction was very simply, you are a helpful agent that can help with weather and time. The tools, in this case, it was those 2 functions that I had created, and then the model, which is in this case Gemini 2.0. So it just wrapped all of it together as a single agent. And you will see 2 more terms on this slide. One is Model Context Protocol, or MCP. I'm assuming most of you folks have heard of MCP in some shape or form, but MCP basically is the ability for you folks to interact with multiple tools and multiple agents as well. So that also is something that we provide in terms of support through ADK. And then we also have announced support for A2A. So A2A, or agent to agent protocol, that's a protocol that we at Google have designed that allows agents to talk to each other. So again, just to maybe take a step back and repeat myself all over again, you have the instructions, which is basically what should the agent do. Then you have the tools, which is basically how can the agent execute the instruction. And then you have the model that powers all of it. All of these are combined together as a single agent. You then have A2A, which allows agents to talk to each other. And then you have MCP, where one given agent can talk to multiple other APIs or also have grounding set up. Okay. Okay, with that, let's get to the last bit, which is Vertex AI. So we spoke about Gemini and the Gemini family of models, and you got to see the 2.5 model in action. Then you saw ADK, which is the ability to actually build something with the model. Now with Vertex, this is where you think about, how do I build a production system? I'm assuming some of you folks are familiar with Vertex. If you're not, that's absolutely not a problem. Vertex is Google's end-to-end machine learning platform. And when I mean that, I truly mean that. Because let's say if you look at the entire ML workflow, right? Think of steps like pre-processing your data, identifying the right model, designing experiments, running a pipeline, triggering a training job, triggering an inference job. All of these are actions and activities a lot of ML engineers and architects will be doing day in and day out. Vertex AI is a single platform for all of it, and you can use Vertex as a way to just power all of those activities that you might be doing in your respective startups. And this is the Vertex stack. We will focus on a very specific part of it for the sake of this session, but this entire stack comprises of a bunch of things, right? And as I was saying, starting from bottom and going all the way up, you have Model Garden. Uh, Model Garden is Vertex's single source of all the models, right? So it could be Google's own models. So that's the Gemini family of models that you saw a little bit earlier. Then you have the open and partner model. So let's say you want to use the Llama models, right? And let's say you want to use Claude, let's say you want to use Mistral, or anything from Hugging Face also for that matter, right? All of those models can be used through Vertex itself. So it becomes your single source for all the models in the model ecosystem. And as of today, unless things have changed, as of this morning, we support more than 200 models through Model Garden. Then going up one layer of the stack, you have the Vertex AI model builder. So this is where you actually interact with the models, right? So you have the ability to design your prompts. So you can use model builder to come up with your prompts. You can use it to manage your prompts as well. Use model builder as a way to run an inference job or even serve a response to the end user. So all of that is possible. The other thing is, how do you come up with, let's say, um, doing some sort of fine tuning for the model, right? Because in most scenarios, and you know what, let's take a step back. What exactly is fine tuning, right? These models are trained on massive data sets, but these models are general purpose in nature. Let's say you want to build a very specific use case. Let's say you want to build a model which is an expert in existing manufacturing processes. So the Vertex AI model builder will allow you to tune the model where you bring a small amount of data and use that as a way to make a general purpose LLM a specialist LLM. So tuning gives you that ability, and that is possible through Vertex AI model builder. You then have the ability to distill a model. So distillation is basically how can a large model teach a specific skill to a smaller model. This is a very powerful thing because let's say you are trying to save inference cost. Let's say you're trying to inference infrastructure save infrastructure cost, and let's say you potentially want to run models at the edge. Now it's not possible to use Gemini or Gemini scale models all the time. With distillation, you can then have the ability of Gemini-like models on substantially smaller models, which then can be deployed anywhere. And then you have the last bit, which is agent builder, where you can build an agent just using the UI, or you can build custom agents as well. And this is the core part that you will end up using as you start building out your agentic solutions on Google Cloud. This is the part that you'll end up using quite a bit. With Agent Builder, you have access to extensions, to connectors, to retrieval engines. So let's say you need a RAG solution for your agent, you can use Agent Builder for that. Let's say you want grounding enabled for your agents, you will use Agent Builder for that, right? So Agent Builder becomes your single solution for all of those experiences. Specifically, what I would want to talk about today is Agent Engine. Now, let's say you've built your agent, right? You've used ADK, you've used your model, you've used a few Python functions. Now, that's not the only way to build agents, by the way, but just for the sake of continuing what I was showing you a little bit earlier. Let's say you've done all of that. Then what? Right? Once you have that piece of code that actual agent needs to be sitting somewhere. Now you can go ahead and deploy that agent on your own infrastructure, right? Again, you can do that, but there's a lot of work involved in doing all of it. Things like how do you ensure that your agents are scalable? Because that's where things can get a little bit painful for you, right? Like, can you ensure that the agents that are being created are as scalable as possible? So with Vertex AI Agent Engine, that's the first advantage, right? We will scale the agents for you. Like we allow you to use APIs that can be used to manage and query the agents and to scale them as well. The second thing is how do you ensure for security? Um, so a lot of you might be in industries where security and compliance is a big deal, right? How do you ensure that the right best practices are being followed? So Vertex AI Engine does that by out of the box itself. The next thing is session management and memory management. Now, especially when you're building multi-agent solutions, how do you track session state across multiple agents? How do you ensure that there is consistency across that entire flow, right? Now, again, you can do that, right? But with Agent Engine, you get a solution that allows you to do all of that. The next thing, I spoke about security, but there's something called, monitoring and logging as well. How do you monitor action and activity that are being done by the agent, and how do you analyze all of that? So again, Agent Engine can help you with all of it. So there's so much that you get as part of Agent Engine, and the best part is it's not again limited to the Google family of models, right? It doesn't have to just be working with Gemini. You can use it with any other models in the Vertex AI model garden. Let's say you have used your own fine-tuned model or any of the open source models as well. You can use it for all of them. And again, from a framework standpoint, it need not be ADK from us. It need not be the agent development kit that I was showing you a little bit earlier. It could be LangChain, it could be LangGraph. So you can potentially have a scenario where you use Gemini with LangChain, build an agent, and deploy that on top of Agent Engine as a way to build in a scalable and secure manner. So that is absolutely possible. In fact, that is what we would very strongly recommend as you start looking to productionize your agents. So what does it all look like, right? So this is the entire flow where you have the agent framework, which could be ADK, LangGraph, LangChain, Crew AI. So these are the most popular ones that at least I see day in and day out when I'm talking to startups in the ecosystem today. Obviously, you have Llama Index as well and other frameworks also. So these frameworks all of them can work with Agent Engine. Then you have the tools, right? Now the tools could be tools that you have built. These could be tools completely built in a custom manner by you. What we've also done as part of the Vertex AI platform is that we have also released a bunch of Google Cloud tools that you can use as a starting point. You can also use MCP as well. So we have support for that. So tools exposed for an MCP server can also be used by our agent, and then the Open API tools also. So all of these tools that you see on your slide, they can also work in conjunction with your framework and the Agent Engine setup. And then you have the models. Like I said, it could be any of those models. It need not be just Gemini. And then finally, all of this sits on top of Agent Engine as your runtime solution, where it's fully managed, fully secure, patchwork, all of that is managed for you, right? So you don't have to manage actual infra when you're deploying your agent. And context management, as I was saying on the previous slide, that's completely managed for you. And you can also take advantage of one very, very important thing that comes with Agent Engine, which is the ability to evaluate your agent. So we have something called Vertex AI Evaluation Service, where you can track the ability of the agent over a period of time to see that whether or not the responses are meeting a certain standard. Okay, and this slide at least I personally feel like this slide does a very good job of capturing everything that we have talked about today. It just puts it all together as a single thing for you to understand what all is possible. Okay, so where exactly does Agent Engine fit in? So you can see that red box on the slide. That's the deployment part. That's where you would deploy your agent on top of Agent Engine. Again, a lot of these things will be talked about a little bit later, so you don't have to follow along and understand everything right now, because I don't expect you to. But we will go into a little bit more detail into this in the next few sessions. Okay. With that, that brings me to the end of my session. Thank you, folks, for following along. And as far as the demo that didn't work, I'll try to maybe power it up again and see if I can get it to work and show it to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Praful. That was fantastic. Now I'm going to let you catch your breath a little bit, take a moment, and I will walk through a few more bits of information on the Google Cloud front. First off, for any startup that's early stage, we have something called the Google for Startups Cloud Program, which I actually own in EMEA. As you're kind of building out, learning more about all the offerings at Google Cloud, and really kind of trying to get your hands around our Gen AI tooling, you can start learning about the different products and solutions and really apply for the credits that we have available for the cloud program. You can see the QR code there as well as the website, but these are credits that help that you can use on both standard GCP offerings as well as any of our Gen AI first-party tooling. So again, click on the code or use the QR to kind of understand a bit more nuances around the program, the other benefits, not just related to credits. This whole program is really tailored to early stage startups across all of the kind of journey and stages. So in terms of funding or product development, so we go up from $2,000 all the way to $250K, depending on if you're an AI first startup, if you're Web3. So again, please, you can learn more about the program with these links. We have covered a lot of information just in one session. And I know any challenge around this sort of session is you're taking a lot of the excitement and knowledge back to your teams, to your work, and you're having to get a lot of buy-in from that. And sometimes you just need a simple, powerful, and visual way to share this vision and this information and show them exactly how to kind of get started. That's why I'm so excited to share the AI Agent Handbook we have. It's not just a recap of what we discussed, it's a strategic asset for you. It's incredibly designed, easily digestible guide that you can forward to your team leads or your colleagues to help them spark their imagination. We have 10 specific actionable use cases, and it makes the potential of AI agents tangible for everyone, regardless of role. Use it as your go-to source to build momentum and start a real conversation about implementation in your organization. The link to download should be in the chat now, and you can also use the link in the QR code from the screen. Consider it your first tool to driving adoption. If you want to keep the conversation going before, during, or after class, please join our AI School Discord channel to connect with everyone. Now I will welcome Praful back to the virtual stage, and we've got some great questions from our audience. Hey, Praful, how are you doing?
Good, good. I think there was a lot that we covered, and I hope folks are following along. But more than that, I believe, I hope you folks are all excited about what all is going to come very soon over the next few sessions.
Awesome. So we will jump into the Q&A. Question 1 comes from Carolyn. Can I build even when I'm not an engineer or if I'm not a non-technical founder?
I think absolutely. Like today, what you would have seen, right? The very first demo where we were just a very simple vibe coding example where I just gave it a simple question and it designed the entire code for you. That's exactly what is happening today. As we speak, there are a lot of startups, there are a lot of founders, there are a lot of companies that are now building this as a culture within their organizations, right? So absolutely possible. Now, from a solution standpoint, there's so many players in this space. We are one of the players as well. But just to be a little bit neutral about this, Cursor, for example, is a great example of using vibe coding as a way to build applications. When it comes to a Google native way of doing this, we have something called Firebase Studio. So do try out Firebase Studio. You can just go to firebase.studio, type it in your search bar, and that'll allow you to go ahead and just type a very simple prompt. You can say things like, build a calculator app for me in Python, and it'll just go ahead and build the entire solution for you in a matter of seconds, right? So absolutely possible, Caroline, to answer your original question. In fact, a lot of people who are non-technical are using this as a way to revive their undergrad days of what they missed out on. Yeah.
Awesome. And I guess sort of piggybacking on that first question, how might a user then deploy that example agent that you created, the travel chatbot, onto a server?
Absolutely. I see it in some ways they are linked to each other, depending on the platform that you use for the first one. So let's take the example of Firebase, which is Google's way of building applications in a vibe coding manner. Firebase Studio allows you to use a publish feature that you can use to just publish the entire code that you have created automatically onto Firebase. You don't need to do anything all by yourself. All you need to do is you should have a credit card ready to set up your billing account, and that's it. You're not really becoming a DevOps engineer or an infrastructure engineer to build all of this. That'll be managed for you through Firebase Studio. And now, other agents, for example, right? That's where Agent Engine becomes powerful, right? And the great thing is, Agent Development Kit that I was showing you folks a little bit earlier has this native integration with Agent Engine. So you can just use ADK itself to build everything and use ADK itself to deploy to Agent Engine. So that becomes even easier, right? So this is for your developers. So my first answer was for the non-coders and the ones who don't want to be DevOps engineers. And this one is for those of you folks who have engineers within your organizations and might want an easy way of deploying this. That's where Agent Engine becomes your answer.
Perfect. Thank you. And then our last question comes from Defeat, and he's really trying to understand how audio works, especially as you compare it to speech. So do they work the same way? Is there sort of the same as like a web speech API? And then also, like, how is it answering in an emotional voice?
So that's what has happened because of the latest launch of Gemini 2.5, right? Now, if you take a step back, in the December of last year, we announced something called Gemini 2.0. And that was the first time where we said that you do not have to, like, voice will be generated in a native manner. And what I mean by that is you give a voice input to a model and you get a voice response back. This is not text to speech. Let me be very clear. This is not a model that's giving you a response in text and then I'm using something on top of it to generate speech. That's not what's happening. In fact, that's another reason why I recommend that all of you try out AI Studio. Like, go into ai.dev, click on the stream option on the left-hand side, and try it out yourself. You're streaming a response, streaming an input to the model, and then the response is being streamed back to you. And it could be text, it could be audio as well, right? So I'm not doing anything special to generate the response. Now, obviously, because this is a streaming solution, I might use something like a WebSocket to have consistency in my interaction with the model. But except for that, I'm not doing anything else. Under the covers, what Gemini is doing all of this, right? It's trained on these data sets and it has this innate ability to generate the response. Now, to answer the bit about emotional voices, this is the newest feature that we have announced as of 20 days ago. I think it was on the 20th of May, if I'm getting my dates right. That's when we announced this feature called native audio. So till now we had an audio response available, but with native audio, the voices have become very human-like. So the voice you would have heard, that was the Zephyr voice from the Gemini 2.5 model. So we support multiple voices for the Gemini 2.5 family of models across 20 plus languages, if I remember my numbers right. But yeah, it's all native. There's not some sort of a middleware that's sitting that's doing the conversion for you.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for answering your questions and hosting this session, Praful. I'm sure everyone really appreciated it. With that said, I think we are all set to wrap everything up.
Great. Thank you, folks. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much to Praful for walking us through that. I know I'm inspired to start building after this session. With that being said, I just wanted to let you know that next up we have architecting intelligent agents. Building the Foundation for Success, which will be the same time as today's session on Thursday, June 12th. If you haven't already added it to your calendar, now's the time to do so to make sure you don't miss out. Of course, it'll also be available for you on demand after we complete it. It'll be packed full of practical tips from our AI expert, Matthias. Definitely don't want to miss this one. Have a great week, and looking forward to seeing you in the next class. Thank you so much, everyone.